You should think of yourself as building a relationship, not making a sale.
That was Gary Halbert, who is widely considered to be one of the world's greatest copywriters that has ever lived. And in this video, I'm going to share with you my favorite 7 copywriting tips for beginners. And as we go through these tips, I think it's important to keep Gary's words in the back of our minds. Whenever we write copy, we're not just trying to make an immediate sale, we're trying to build a relationship with our reader. The first copywriting principle is to sell people what they want and to give them what they need.
The most important thing Ted said in this seminar, if you never get anything else out of it, is that you don't sell people what they need, you sell them what they want.
So often we think that we know what people want and what's in their best interest, especially if we're considered an expert in our field. But maybe the people that are reading our copy don't want what we think they need. And if that's the case, we need to make sure that we talk with them and truly understand what they want. There's a famous Henry Ford quote that says, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have asked for faster horses. Which is just to say that people don't always know what they need.
The market tells us we're making the wrong choices, we listen to the market. We're just people running this company. We're trying to make great products for people. And so we have at least the courage of our convictions to say, we don't think this is part of what makes a great product. We're going to leave it out. Some people are going to not like that. They're going to call us names. It's not going to be in certain companies' vested interests that we do that, but we're going to take the heat because we want to make the best product in the world for customers.
The reason why I open with this principle is, as an online entrepreneur, so often you're not just selling someone else's product, but you're actually the one creating the product that you're selling. And if that's the case, it's so important that when you go to sell, you follow the words of Gary Halbert. You make sure you sell people what they want. But when you go into your product creation mode and build the product for your target readers, then you want to take the words of Henry Ford and Steve Jobs. Build people what they need and give that to them. So that's how this whole principle comes together. Sell people what they want, but give them what they need. This second copywriting principle is to keep your copy simple. So often we grew up in a school system where we got rewarded for using bigger, more complicated words. And the more big words we use, the better grade we got. And this has conditioned us to write more complex, thinking that the more complex we are, the more effective our writing is. But copywriting has shown that this is not the way to go. The copy that is most effective is the copy that's written simply. Every well-known copywriter will tell you this. And that's why when we go to write any piece of copy, we want to unlearn everything we learned about using complex language and instead keep our copy as simple as we possibly can. What I'm going to show you now is a short snippet of a college acceptance essay that got an entrepreneurial student into Brown University, which is a very prestigious university. And I want you to notice what kind of language this person used to get into this university. Every time I drive into a client's driveway, there's always that moment. The moment where I must shed any doubt I have and become adamant. That moment where I realize that people are depending on me and I must do my best to help them. So that's all I'm going to read about this, but just notice the type of language and the style of the application essay. Now this is apparently a great essay because it got this student into an Ivy League university. But now let's compare that with some copy from one of the most successful copywriters of all time, Gary Halbert. Now here's a short snippet from Gary Halbert's letter. Dear friend and subscriber, hey, you remember last month how I revealed to you how I was offering 5 free reports as a bribe to get people to subscribe to this newsletter? What's that? You say you do remember? Good. Since that's the case, you may also remember that those free reports reveal the following 5 powerful secrets. Now, the purpose in me sharing this is not to say that the Gary Halbert letter is better and that other letter is not good, but just notice the difference in language. In the Gary Halbert letter, the purpose is to use as simple language as possible. And the only time Gary Halbert uses a bigger word, such as powerful, is just to bring some emotion into the writing. But he never uses words like adamant just to sound more fancy or complex. And this is a great example of how great copywriters keep their writing very, very simple.
Now let's talk about big ideas. Big ideas. No, that's what the advertising business is really all about.
The third copywriting principle is to come up with a big idea and have all of your copy revolve around that one big idea. And the person I'm introducing for this principle is David Ogilvy. And he's one of the most successful ad people that ever lived. He has so much great content out there about how to create powerful advertisements. And one of his key lessons is to come up with a big idea. Advertising is all about big ideas. And you want to spend as much time needed to make sure that before you even go to write your copy, that you're clear on what your big idea is, and that way your copy is focused around this very powerful message. What I want to show you now is two big ideas in different advertising campaigns that David Ogilvy came up with. And the first is for Pepperidge Farm. And he had the idea for this in a dream where he saw a carriage being drawn by two horses. And that was the big idea. Pepperidge Farm is this homey, comfortable, slice of life company. So when you eat it or you see an advertisement for it, it reminds you of that way of living, the comfort that that way of living brings. And that was a big idea that turned out to be hugely successful in the marketing of Pepperidge Farm products for many years to come. Now, another big idea that David Ogilvy created was for this Rolls-Royce ad, which was hugely successful, and so many famous copywriters refer to this letter and study it because of how powerful it is. And it all rests on the single big idea that you can see in this headline right here. At 60 miles an hour, the loudest noise in this new Rolls-Royce comes from the electric clock. Now, when selling a Rolls-Royce, the author, David Ogilvy, could have talked about how powerful it is, how luxurious it is, but the main big idea here is how silent it is. That the loudest noise comes from the electric clock. And immediately that makes me think that it's elegant, it's peaceful. And all of the copy is going to explain more reasons why the person should buy a Rolls-Royce, but it all centers around this main idea in the headline that this is an elegant, silent, luxurious car.
Unless your advertising has a big idea, it will pass like a ship in the night. That's what the advertising business is all about, big ideas.
The fourth copywriting principle is people buy with emotion and justify with logic. So you could have all of the logical reasons in the world why someone should buy your product or service, but if you're not touching that person's emotions, you're never going to move them enough where they're going to be motivated to actually buy your product or service. What moves people is emotion. When you stir up that energy of excitement inside of someone, that's when they move. And then once they're all excited about your product or service and they truly want it at that feeling level, then they need a reason to justify why they're spending money on your product or service. So just because they're excited about your product doesn't mean that they can justify why they would spend a couple $100s or whatever the price is. They need a logical reason, so if someone asks, why did you buy that? They could say, well, it has this feature that's going to make me live longer, or whatever the feature is. And that's not only to explain our buying decisions to other people, but even for ourselves in our own mind. We won't feel comfortable spending a lot of money on something unless we have logical reasons to back up why we made that decision. And there is one company that is better at this than any other company that I know.
iPhone 11 Pro.
Notice how your emotions are feeling after watching that clip. Every year they release a new iPhone and people line up to buy them. And most of these people don't need a new phone, but the emotions get us so excited where we feel like we want it so badly. And then watch how Apple justifies that decision with the logical reasons why we should buy an iPhone.
And with new optimized batteries that give you up to 5 extra hours in your day, you get more pro performance in an iPhone for longer than ever.
That's an example of a logical reason why we need to get a new phone. Better battery life. So we may have gotten a phone pretty recently, but it dies halfway through the day. And we're so excited to get this new iPhone because the ad has stirred up all these emotions in us, but we can't just say, oh, I bought the new iPhone because I was so excited to get it. The logical reason why is, oh, I need better battery life. I need my phone to last the whole day, not half a day. And then if someone asks us, oh, why did you buy that phone? We'll say, look at all these features like better battery life. But that's not the reason we bought it. That's the justification for why we bought it. The reason is mostly due to how it makes us feel to own the new iPhone. The fifth copywriting principle is getting to know your readers. We may have some guesses about what we think people want, and we can create our copy all around what we think they want, but until we actually ask them and hear it from their mouths directly or from a survey that they've submitted, we don't actually know what people want. We're just guessing.
As I was reading David Ogilvy's famous advertising book, I came across this gem that I just have to read for you. I have seen one advertisement actually sell not twice as much, not 3 times as much, but 19.5 times as much as another. Both advertisements occupied the same space. Both were run in the same publication. Both had photographic illustrations. Both had carefully written copy. The difference was that one used the right appeal and the other used the wrong appeal. And this is why this principle is so important. We need to get to know our readers and hear what they are looking for in order to make sure that we use the right appeal in our advertising. We may have features in a certain product that we're writing copy for that we think are amazing, but it turns out that our readers don't care about those features, and they actually care about something else that we may have never even thought of.
And so the best way to know what people want is to ask them directly. My favorite tool is customer interviews, because all it is a one-on-one conversation where you ask people any questions you have about what they're struggling with, what they are looking for in a solution, what they've tried that hasn't worked in the past, and everything they tell you is just a golden nugget that you can use to create an awesome product that actually helps them. It doesn't give people what you think they want, it gives them what they actually want.
Where I'm at is actually I'm a stained glass artist, and I'm in my studio. Behind me is the plastic sheeting that protects the paint booth.
Or why did you choose copywriting as the way you see to make an extra source of income?
That seemed to resonate the best with the types of things that I've already done.
What you just saw was a short clip of a customer interview that I did with Andrew. And in that 20-minute clip, I got so many valuable golden nuggets of ideas and wisdom about what this person wants. But the thing is, without those golden nuggets, I would have just been guessing. And I could have spent hours writing a piece of copy that I think would serve Andrew, but by just asking him questions for 20 minutes, I removed the need for all that guesswork and can be much more confident that I'm actually speaking to him directly and his needs. And all of that happened in 20 minutes. It's incredible how valuable customer interviews are, and most people don't do it because they're scared to get on the phone with someone they don't know. So if you're willing to take that courageous step, the value you're going to get from doing live customer interview calls is just so worth your time. It's insane. It's like a secret superpower.
Next concept that we're talking about are headlines. And almost all of the great copywriters agree that headlines are the most important part of your copy. And what a headline is the title that's designed to have your reader become interested in what you're writing about, so they'll click on it or decide to read more of your copy. So for example, we see headlines everywhere today. And if you were to go on the Kindle store, every single book title is considered a headline. And we're looking for headlines that grab our attention. So for example, I just typed in copywriting and I'm looking at this headline here. Everybody Writes, your go-to guide for creating ridiculously good content. If that headline grabs me as a reader, then I'm going to click on it and read the copy of the book to see whether or not I want to buy this book and maybe look at the reviews. But I wouldn't do that if I don't like the headline. So the headline is the most important piece because it decides whether or not your reader actually takes the time to look at your other copy. On YouTube, all of the titles are headlines. And the whole purpose of every single title is to get me as a viewer to click on the video. And it doesn't matter how amazing or great your video is and how much time you spent working on it if I don't click on your headline or video title. Because if I don't click on it, I'm never going to see it at all. And this is why a lot of famous copywriters say they would write a huge piece of copy, multiple pages, but they would still spend more time brainstorming the perfect headline because they know just how important it is. If we go do a Google search, in this case I just did how to run a marathon, every single one of these pages is a headline. And I'm only going to click on the page that grabs my attention based on the headline. So if this one doesn't do it for me, I might click on this one instead because I like this headline more. One last example I'll leave you with is BuzzFeed. Now they're a company that's notorious for creating really catchy headlines that get people to click on their articles. And of course you want your copy to be great, but the purpose of these real-world examples is just to show you how valuable and important the headline is. And what most people do is they spend a lot of time on their copy and then just create a simple headline without giving it much thought. But as all the great copywriters know, the headline is the most important piece and it requires extra attention from you.
Gary Halbert is huge on headlines, and here's what he has to say about the effectiveness of changing a book title.
Edelman found out, as Ted Nicholas has told you, by changing the title of the book without changing a word of the concepts, you could increase the sales 500, 1,000%.
The seventh and final copywriting principle is that every piece of copy has one single action. In other words, there's a purpose for the person reading our copy. By the end of it, there's an action that we want them to take. And that may be entering their email so they can join our email list and get a freebie, or to comment on our YouTube video, or come check out our storefront. Whatever the thing is, it's important that we're clear about the single action that we want the reader to take, and then we spell it out step by step how they can take that action. And one of the best metaphors I've heard from a famous copywriter about this is the slippery slide. And the idea of the slippery slide is our piece of copy is just like a child going down a slide. Make it so fun and easy to read that they just naturally flow from the first sentence to the second sentence to the third sentence, all the way to the very bottom of your slide where they take that final action. It's just the next logical step for them to take. And this metaphor of the slippery slide comes from a famous copywriter named Joseph Sugarman.
You could have the greatest product in the world, you can have the greatest, all the money behind it, you can have the greatest scientists supporting you, but if you don't have marketing, you have nothing. That
was Joseph Sugarman, and he is a copywriting legend and just a true marketing a warrior, amazing person. And that's why when he uses this metaphor of the slippery slide, it's so important that we listen and use it ourselves. The seventh copywriting principle is all about making sure that your copy leads the reader to take the one single action that you want them to take. And before you start writing your copy, you want to be clear about what this action is that you want the reader to take by the end of reading it. And now that this video has come to an end, I have the one single action for you to take. I've created this copywriting mega folder that includes a bunch of PDFs that summarize the main copywriting principles that we talked about in this video, as well as other copywriting principles that are going to be helpful to you, and some of the most famous and successful sales letters that you can use to get new ideas and be inspired by. In order to download this copywriting mega folder, all you have to do is go to the link below and enter your email address. The link is eric.camp/copytips. And as soon as you go there and enter your email address, you'll receive a link to download the full copywriting mega folder in a couple of minutes. So that's it for this video. My name is Eric John Campbell. I'm so grateful to have you here. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it and subscribe to this channel to get more content just like this. And in the comments, I would love to hear what is your favorite copywriting principle that you heard in this video. That'll be helpful for me to make sure I make more content in the future that you find valuable. Thank you and have an amazing day.